Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. We've been selling auto parts for over 30 years.
Pop the hood. Release the hood right here. Lift that. Put the prop rod right there. All right, before we pull the hood off, we're gonna wanna mark where it's located on the hinges. We're gonna use a felt tip pen. Just go like that. And then we'll know where to put it back when we reinstall it. We'll do the same for the other side. So we're gonna take this washer hose off. There's no disconnect. We could cut it and then put a union in, but what we'll do is we'll take a right angle pick right here, just work this out. And pull that off there. Actually, you can slide this out here. Pull that through there, pull that through here. We could pull these connectors off, but they'll probably break. So I'll just slide it out. Just like that. Now I'm gonna loosen up these bolts. I'm gonna use a 12mm socket and a ratchet. You just want to get these so they're finger tight. Once they're finger tight, then you can release the hinge from the hood. Sometimes it's tight in there. You can grab a screwdriver and pry. And then I'm going to grab a partner to help me take the hood. And while they hold the hood, I'm going to loosen up these sides and do the same thing. Okay, once they're finger tight, release that. And then while holding the hood, you take the bolts out. Put the prop rod down. And I can pull the hood right off. We removed the hood so that it's easier to see on camera, but you don't have to do this to do this job. Okay, so before we take the wires off, you can see on the distributor cap, the numbers are marked for which wire is which. There's number 1, there's number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and number 6. So I'm just gonna make sure. So before I do that, I'm gonna mark this one as number 1. This next one right here is number 3. And then this one right here is number 5. And then this one right here is number 2. Check this one. It says number 4. And this last one should be number 6. It says number 6. All right, so I'm going to start with pulling off number 1. Sometimes these can be tricky. There's a little retainer right here. I'm going to pop it out so I get a little more slack in the wire, and I can twist it back and forth, and generally I should be able to pull it up. Okay. Over on the spark plug, we'll do the same. Just twist the wire and gently pull it up. So before we start installing the wires, what we want to do is take all the wires out of the box and set them in order from smallest to longest. And at that point, what you can do is one at a time, when you pull a wire out, you can bring it over and match it up to the length. And then you know that's the correct wire for that. We can label this as number 1, or we can just install it and go to the next one. Right here, down in this hole, where we took the spark plug wire off, is our spark plug. We're gonna clean this with some compressed air. You wanna get all this sand out of the way so none of it goes down into the cylinder when we pull out the spark plug. So we'll just take the compressed air. And do that. We're going to take this spark plug out of number 1. We're going to use a spark plug socket specifically made for spark plugs. What this does is this helps hold the plug in once it is loose. There is a rubber grommet in there. This is a 5/8 spark plug socket, and I'm going to use an extension. This happens to be a wobble extension. You don't need a wobble extension. You could use a universal joint or an extension and just work accordingly. So then we'll slip it on the spark plug, use the extension and then the ratchet. And loosen it up. We recommend not using power tools when you're replacing spark plugs. It's safer not to break or strip something, so just do it by hand. Once it's loose, I can just use my hands, and then the spark plug comes right out with the socket. As you can see, this is our old spark plug. This is our new spark plug from 1aauto.com. These have some wear on them. The gap is a lot bigger than it should be. As you can see, the new gap is nice and tight. The threads are the same. If you replace the plugs, you're going to get better performance, better fuel mileage. It'll run a lot better, a lot smoother. Get yours at 1aauto.com and you'll be ready to rock and roll. I didn't like that there was some sand still in there, so what I'm going to do is use the vacuum and just suck some of the sand out. So now we're going to install the number 1 spark plug. They come pre-gapped, so we don't have to gap them. We're going to stick the spark plug in the socket and have our extension, and we're going to slide it down in there. Get it lined up. Make sure you do this by hand. You want to make sure you can feel the spark plug threading in before you put a ratchet on it, because otherwise you could cross thread. And that's starting to go in. Just going to grab another extension so it's easier to tighten this down. And once I feel it snug, I'm going to get a torque wrench and I'm going to torque this to 22 foot-pounds. That's good. You can torque this between 14 foot-pounds and 22 foot-pounds. I prefer to tighten it a little bit tighter, so we torqued it at 22 foot-pounds. We can pull out the torque wrench, and we can do the same for the others. So we have our number 1 spark plug wire. We're going to fish it through here, underneath this wire, and down and right onto the spark plug, down here, and it should lock in place. And then here we're going to put it on the number 1 slot in the distributor cap and push that down in place, And then there's a wire retainer right here. I'm just gonna push it down right there. And make sure the wires aren't touching anything else or rubbing on any metal that they could rub and arc out. And that one looks good. So we're gonna do the number 2 plug wire. I'm gonna pull this one off. Right there. And there was a retainer holding it right there. So just pull that off. And then right here, I'm just gonna pull and wiggle it back and forth. And it's got a long boot that goes all the way down underneath the intake. You don't have to take the intake off to do these though. And yeah, just like that. So again, we'll line up these to figure out which size is which. This one's the smaller one with the long boot on it. So this is our number 2 plug wire. So there's some sand and some debris down next to the spark plug. I don't want that falling into the cylinder when I pull the spark plug out. So I'm gonna take some compressed air and clean it out. All right, to get the number 2 spark plug, we're gonna use our 5/8 spark plug socket. An extension, I'm gonna add another extension because it's really deep down in there. If you have a longer extension, you can just use that. Like that, and then put my ratchet on, and I'll loosen it up. Once it's loose enough to do it by hand, you can take the ratchet off, and then you'll feel it come out, and the socket will pull the spark plug right out. Okay, so we're gonna reinstall the new spark plug into our spark plug socket, and that'll hold it from falling out. You wanna make sure you do not drop this head down, otherwise it's gonna change your gap, and that would not be good. So we'll take this, slide it in there. And once you get to the hole, you'll just start tightening by hand. Make sure you do not strip it. And we'll put our ratchet on. And we'll tighten it until it's snug, and then we will torque it. And we will torque this with a torque wrench to between 14 foot-pounds and 22 foot-pounds. And that's good. So here's our number 2 wire. We're gonna slide this down in there. Make sure you get it on the spark plug first. Once it's on the spark plug, push it down, and this little grommet goes over this retainer. That just guides it in, and then it locks in. And there's a little holder that holds the plug wire. And then we'll route it over to here. And that's gonna go on number 2. And push it down. So the odd numbers are gonna be on this side, so 1, 3, 5. And then the even numbers are on this side. This is 2, 4, 6 in the back. So in this spark plug hole, there was a lot of sand and dirt, and just using this blowgun on its own wasn't working for me. I don't have a blowgun here with a long tip. So what I did was, so we had some extra brake line in the shop. So what I did was I just cut a little piece, and then I can use this down here like a straw, and I can take the blowgun and just go on the end. And this will help to get a lot of that sand and dirt out so that when you take the spark plug out, it won't fall into the cylinder. Pull that spark plug out. All right, we're going to torque this one. Down here. Make sure it's on the plug. Slide that all the way down. This last one back here is a little bit tough. Get your hands in back there and just twist it a little bit. And try to pull while you're twisting. Oh. Pull that one out. So we're going to take a little camera here. This is a borescope. And then we'll be able to see in the back side where the spark plug is. Right here, that's the spark plug. And you can see around the spark plug, it's pretty dirty. Yep, there's a lot of sand right there around the spark plug. So we're gonna try to blow some of that sand out of there so it doesn't go in the hole. All right, so I'm gonna take my blowgun with my brake hose extension and try to blow around the spark plug. So you don't need one of these cameras, but we were just using it to point it out to show you the back side of the spark plug because it's hard to see. And when you're doing this job, you really can't see that spark plug. So we blew back there, probably got as much sand as we can get out of there, so that'll be okay. So to get this back one, I put the spark plug socket on a universal and a shorter extension to get back there. It's actually really hard to get to this spark plug, and you can't see what you're doing when you're doing it. You just have to feel around and eventually you get it on there. Now I'm going to use this smaller extension up here with the ratchet. It helps to have a ratchet that swivels. Just loosen it up a little bit at a time. I got it loose so that it's finger tight, so I just loosen it with my hands now. While I'm doing this, I can just tug it up a little bit and see if it pulls out. Okay, the spark plug is loose. I can pull it out. So we were looking at this one and we could see that the gap looked rather large on this plug as compared to the new one. They should be about 0.039. The new one's about 0.037, which is close enough. But the new one, the old one, is measuring at 0.075. That's way too much. That's definitely going to affect drivability and fuel economy. All right, so we're going to install the spark plug into our socket and our universal and our extensions. I'll take this extension off for now until I get it in. And then, so just be careful in the back because you don't want to drop it. It will be hard to line it up where it goes. It's getting a little bit snug, so I'll put the ratchet on. Once it's snugged up, now I can torque it with a torque wrench. And we can pull our torque wrench out. And pull the extension universal and socket out. Okay, now we'll install this number 6 wire. It's hard to line this up, but just send this back here. This is really hard to see, so you have to do it by touch, or if you had a mirror might help. But just feel around, try to find the spark plug. So we got that on. Make sure you push it down so it's all the way down. We'll line this up here. I'm going to snap this in first. This is number 6. And then we will push this into the clips that hold the wire on, like that. Okay, so we're going to do number 3 and number 5. We did these difficult ones already. These two are going to be the same. These are a lot easier to get to. This is number 3, and this one's number 5. Hold the hood up. I'm going to line it up with the holes. Try to get one of the bolts in. I got those started. And I'll assist my helper. I can put the prop rod back up. And I can snug these bolts up. Remember to line them up with the marks that you'd already made. That looks pretty good. I'm just going to snug the top one up, and then I'm going to check this side. I'll check and make sure this is lined up good. It looks pretty good. So I'll snug this one down, and I'll snug this one down, and then snug up the other two. Make sure the line is in the right spot where I marked it. Snug the bottom one up. Good. So the end of this is swollen, so it's kind of hard to fish it through this way. I'm actually just going to cut the tip of this off. This will just make it easier to fish it through, and it'll create a better seal when we go to put it on. So I'll just use some scissors and cut it right there. And just that little bit taking off isn't going to make it so it's not long enough. It slides through there. So we'll slide through here. And push that right on there. Just like that. It's plenty long enough. Now, before I slam the hood, I'm just gonna carefully make sure it lines up on the side. Make sure I'm not hitting my fender. And same with this side. It looks pretty good, and it lines up with the latch. If you look right there, lines up good. So now I'll close it, and everything looks like it lines up good.
Thanks for watching. Visit us at oneauto.com for quality auto parts, fast and free shipping, and the best customer service in the industry.